TBRI.
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 TOVD.
TBRI.
TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention.
TBRI is an attachment-based,
Trauma-informed intervention
that is designed to meet the complex needs
of vulnerable children.
TBRI uses empowering principles
To address physical needs,
connecting principles for attachment needs,
and correcting principles to disarm fear-based behaviors.
While TBRI is based on years of attachment, sensory processing, and neuroscience research,
the heartbeat of TBRI is connection.
Hello and welcome to the TBRI Podcast. You're listening to Season 12, Episode 1. On this show, we talk all about TBRI, or Trust-Based Relational Intervention. We talk about different elements of the model itself, and we also talk about how TBRI is applied in various communities of care and practice. I'm Emily Pickett, producer of the podcast, and we are so glad to be back for Season 12. If you are listening in real time, this episode is airing in the summer, which is a time of transition for our teens and college students who have just graduated and are moving on to the next phase of their lives. As we think about what it looks like to view this transition from high school to young adulthood through a developmental lens, we thought of no one better to talk with us about this than Kim Glaudy. Kim is a regular on the podcast by now. Y'all know all about Kim. She and Sarah are going to discuss the way that attachment, biological changes, mindfulness, and more play out in our relationships with young adults as they gain independence. This is the first of 3 conversations on this topic, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes in this series. We also wanted to make sure that y'all know that these episodes are also available on YouTube. So if you would prefer to watch the video of this conversation, you can find us on our YouTube channel. You can also access a transcript of this conversation if you listen on Spotify. Thanks so much for listening, and please enjoy this conversation with our friend, Kim Glaudy.
Man, Kim, it's always my favorite day when you're here with us. Thanks for coming back.
What? It's my family. It's like a family reunion.
It is so fun. I know that since we last chatted, you're still kind of doing the same thing. And so how about let's jump right in. I feel like the people know you. And if they don't know you, we have several episodes. But most importantly, I think for this episode is to know that you have been part of the transition from later high school years into young adulthood, and what that is like, which is, I don't know, safe to say real messy.
That's good.
Yeah, it feels really messy. So let's jump in. I'd like to say we've survived it, but I don't know. I'm not sure yet.
That's relative.
It's still up in the air. So let's talk about like 16 on. We're not really talking about what's happening after high school, whether it's college, whether it's career, whether it's whatever. But just getting through that stage, and how can we survive the relationship that we have worked so hard to develop, and how can we help them launch into some independence, and what's appropriate in that way. So before we begin, thinking 16 to 20-year-olds, 16 and 18, 19-year-olds, developmentally, what should we expect during that season?
Yeah, it is. I think the whole season is that of transition, and it may even start a little bit earlier, right? Where your kiddos are experiencing that puberty, so their body is changing hormonally. And as we know, that also affects attitude.
I have no idea what you were speaking of.
Yes, attitude, and how that impacts the relationship, therefore, between child and caregiver, whomever that is, right? I've worked with grandparents who are raising their grandchildren, and how all of a sudden their really nice, loving, kind granddaughter is like pushing back and defiant and acting out. And when we may or may not realize or understand that some of that is hormonal changes that are happening. And so their body is changing. I think relationally they're changing, even in whose opinion holds the most value. Where their directive, their guide, oftentimes would come from inside of the house, right? Go to bed, do this. It's time to do your homework. I'm gonna even mind your friend group. I remember my kids were younger and they wanted to spend the night at someone's house. I'd have to have an FBI check.
Right.
I'm driving by the house. I need to know who lives there. I'm running license plates, numbers, all of that.
Is that legal? I'm just kidding. Don't answer that.
I got friends. And so we had a lot more say and influence. And then all of a sudden, when kids are spending more time outside of the house, not only are they spending time outside of the house, but their point of influence moves from internal to external. And that can bring a whole lot.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot happening physiologically, but also socially and relationally during that time. That makes it hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think something our kids are experiencing, whether, they have to or not, that we didn't have to experience or didn't even have the option of, is the influence of social media. I mean, we literally call people influencers. And so I feel like from the parenting perspective, it is unbelievably difficult to, I mean, I know there's ways to do it, but it feels like our kids are savvier than our tech. And so it's hard to mitigate the influence that's coming in. And so I think figuring out how we balance that within our relationships is really the most important. I mean, that's how we make it work in some ways, is if we can lean on relationship instead of hardcore rules, which I'm not saying we shouldn't have rules, we need structure, but I am more likely to adhere to something I don't want to do if I'm in relationship with somebody. So, okay, so that's interesting. So thinking about those things, physically they're changing. I mean, like, think about those 5 Bs. Right?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Those are literally like going through an assault process during this time. And many of them have already experienced massive changes because of their experiences to begin with. So what do you think this looks like when we talk about attachment?
Yeah, well, I think in that, with all of these things changing, if we as the caregiver don't also make the shift, I think that is what adds that additional stressor to it. And a lot of times we can't or don't make the shift because of our own attachment styles, right? So I'll give a case in point. I remember in my personal life, and for all those listening, don't worry, my children have given me permission to share stories.
Yes.
So
yes.
They know I'm their mama and I like to share stories. But I remember when there was an event and my daughter likes to do like liturgical and praise dance. And I wanted her to do a praise dance. In full transparency, it was to honor my mom, and it was at my mom's funeral.
Okay.
So and my mother loved to see her dance. So the family's planning the whole funeral, and Nia's on the agenda to praise dance. My daughter is on the agenda to praise dance. And she's like, nah, I don't think so. And she's kind of then dragging her feet. I'm like, what are you going to dance to? She's like, So really, she's telling me she doesn't want to do it the whole time, but I'm not listening. So what song have you chosen? I'm like, have you worked on your choreography? All the things. We get to the night of the rehearsal and she's like, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not doing it? You're on the agenda.
Right. We already printed your name on the paper.
I'm not doing it. And I'm like, I almost try to guilt her. Oh, your grandmother and da, 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 da. But in that moment, I had a hard time accepting her autonomy because of my need to control, right? My need to have my hand in everything, consistency, all of the pieces, my authority, right? Respecting my voice and my authority. You're going to do this because I'm your mom. And that was the first time. Y'all, shame on me, but this is what I did. Don't judge. This is a safe space. We don't judge.
Safe space.
I was like, where you're going to tell the family, because I'm not going to tell them, because I knew she wouldn't go and tell the family, and she went and told the family. And it was from that she was not dancing. And it was from that day I said, oh, she gets to choose. Oh,
yeah.
I don't have control over her. Now, I could have continued to assume my authority as her parent moving forward, but it was that day that I said, okay, okay. And since then we've been able to negotiate. So I had to do the adjustment as she
Right.
was adjusting.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important to know, like you said in the very beginning, hormones are a huge factor in everything that's happening here. And any event, little events are supercharged, right? So then you go into a big event where we feel out of control. Like the importance of mindfulness for us during this season is paramount because
Mm-hmm.
you're literally trying to honor your mom and you're probably feeling like your daughter's not following your direction. So like whammy whammy.
Whammy,
So
whammy.
it's like, it's a profound example, but that translates from something as crucial and important as your mom's funeral and how we honor her, right down to the whether they're going to be allowed to have holes in their jeans or not. Because
Absolutely.
for me, that came with feelings too, right? Like,
Absolutely.
we can buy you pants without holes in them. Well, I don't want pants without holes in them, turns out, right? Like, I mean, all of that stuff, if we aren't super mindful to our own histories in this season, it is a huge spot that we can run into so many problems
Mm-hmm.
because the reality is part of the development is that they are supposed to be pulling away from us.
Yeah.
Like they are supposed to be going towards their peer groups.
Yeah.
And I remember when somebody told me, I think it was Casey Call said, like if we send them away when they're little and in distress, when they're older and in distress, they're going to go away from us too. And so I remember thinking like, I want them to go to their friends when they're not in distress, and I want them to come to me when they are. And let me tell you, there were a lot of mistakes made, but as an overarching rule, the attachment work that we did, because remember, I didn't learn TBRI. I have a dismissive attachment style. I didn't learn TBRI until, they were 6 and 8 or something. And so we've had to repair attachment.
Mm-hmm.
We're all trying to learn to not be dismissive. And so I think that like that work will pay off if you're listening and having littles and thinking this doesn't apply to you. Everything you're doing right now applies to kids who
Yes.
are older.
Yes.
Oh, the attachment game stresses me out, man.
Yeah, but it's so meaningful, right? And
It's so meaningful.
it just makes sense that, in those moments, right? You wearing holes in your jeans and people seeing you means that I, as your mother, don't care how you look, or somehow
Right.
that is a charge against me. And that has nothing to do with you.
Turns out.
It's a fashion trend that they want to do.
Right.
But that's how attachment comes in, like how somehow, right? This is a reflection of me and what I'm able to do, not do, my task. Like I didn't buy you new jeans, right? Bad mom.
Bad mom.
Bad mom. Yeah.
And you know what? The funny thing is like the capacity for me to be mindful in that moment and have a conversation about the jeans is that's the thing that makes you the good mom. It's not the whether or not you buy them or not, or how that plays out. It's really like, can we be connected in this moment?
Yeah.
Because the other thing I think it's important for us to realize as parents is we too were once teenagers. And so I see it play out in like neighborhood groups and kids these days, I'm like, are exactly like we were.
We forget though. We forget.
Like these kids are, I mean, the only thing they're doing differently than we are is something on the internet, which we didn't have. So there you have it.
Right.
Let's connect it to the 3 pillars a little bit, because I think that as they pull away, sometimes it's easy to put our hands up so that we don't end up injured. So what do you think? Because that's for me is like a place I can easily go is I'm still learning how to be vulnerable in spaces and in relationships. And so like if this kid is like pulling away from me, in some ways it's like, okay, you go, because I feel vulnerable and like I can be injured. And so the idea of like, no, we got to stick with it. But co-regulation, what's she got?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about even more about what you said, and that the quicker we can get to a state of mindfulness, is the quicker we can get to a space where we can co-regulate. The quicker we can understand, like, oh, this is not about me. This is, again, my history trying to hijack this situation where I can't even see my child, is us then saying, oh, for my child, right, you're grieving your grandmother's death as well.
Right.
And you choose to do that in a different way than your mom does that. Right. And just being able to honor her process. Or, oh, you choosing to wear holes in your jeans, although I can't stand that, is the way for you to kind of fit in and make connection with your peer group. Oh, right. So again, just going back to that space of mindfulness.
Oh, I mean, mindfulness literally saves me in my relationships with my kids. It's the place where I don't make it about me. It's a place where I don't let fear rule.
Yeah.
It's right. All of those things are where mindfulness really wins the day for me. So co-regulation is like, our friend Jamie DeLuna told me recently that she told one of her kids, like, I think her oldest, like, hey, this is my first time being the mom of an 11-year-old, and this is your first time being an 11-year-old. So we're going to learn this together.
Yeah.
And I can remember when mine were like just starting, probably like some of the puberty stuff and middle school and early high school. And I felt like they would walk in the room as like, upset or escalate a little bit or whatever, and they could leave and turn around and come back like 5 minutes later, like this kid I've known my whole life. And then they could leave and come back a comedian. And like, it's like, if you just sit long enough, right? Like you, because so much is happening in their brains and their bodies, and it's confusing and it's scary and they're excited and they're very loud at that age. But I think about co-regulation is almost sometimes like, and it is actually always like, can I just sit here and be steady? So as you're cycling through your fear of, friendships are messy, or I got a bad grade, or I didn't make the team, or I did make the team. And there's, and it's almost like, can I just bring my steady to the storm? Because they are in a storm.
Yes. And if you can't be steady, can you get back to steady? Right. Because I think for a lot of us, again, as we are navigating that world of attachment and our histories are playing out in real time, that, okay, I'm off. Let me hurry up and get myself to a place where I can, again, show up and repair, and then get to my stance as steady. So my child has the opportunity to do their thing, and I'm here to be the calm that they need.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I'll tell on myself, y'all know I always do. I'm in it with them. I'm in it with her. She got an attitude, and guess who's matching energy? And then I'm like, oh, wait. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a bad interaction. Hey, can you come back? Let's talk about this. I'm back to steady, and I can hold your stuff. Bring it to me.
Yeah, I can remember one time I watched one of mine drive out the driveway too fast. Like, they drove out the driveway too fast, which you can imagine that means how fast they were driving down the road. And I was literally still mad about it when they got home. Like, stop that. Right? Like, I had my speech ready. I was ready to go. And, they came home with a vastly different, I mean, that was a lifetime ago in their mind, and so it's like, just what we can bring is I think you're exactly right. The example of what does it look like for me to mess up and try again, because then they can have the reality of, I don't have to be perfect all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's so much pressure.
Yeah. And then I think it leads to that second pillar of connection, right? And you talked about being vulnerable. Like, if you can see my errors and I can repair, like, I erred in public and I'm about to repair in public, and know that it's public as in me and you, right? And it's okay. Then gives them permission to not have to be right, not have to make the right decision, to not have to try and please you, to not have to try and whatever their thing that they're working on, and that they can repair and that they can get back and it's okay. It's that dance, right? We talk about all the time and mirroring that for them. And I think that just makes the connection stronger.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like there's so much for them to be afraid of during this season because things, I mean, like, I mean, you remember, like you feel out of whack in your body to begin with. You don't understand why you're freaked out and hyper and sweaty and right, like everything is a mess.
Weird smelling.
Yeah, listen, I don't think I want to talk about that. Right, but like, and then I think about one of the tools that TBRI really gave me in relationship were those engagement strategies. But this was a period of time when those really began to shift and how they went down. Right. So behavior matching may have gone from coloring with the same crayon or the same color crayon or, building the same Legos or whatever to like car rides to Sonic, listening to their music, doing nails together, which that is not a strength of mine, but it was a strength of theirs. Right. And so thinking about like if you're in this space of where we're going to launch our kids out, like showing interest in what they're interested in doing, because what doesn't matter whether they go to college or they go into a trade or, just go straight into work is either way, they still need us. Right. Like, and it's, I remember for so long, I said the lie was that you're done at 18. Right. Like, I mean, I had a doctor tell me like, once you get to 18, well, that's a big lie. And so I think, thinking about how do we continue to connect with what's interesting to them, because there's a really good chance it's not going to be that interesting to me. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be, so is it the music? Is it a concert? Is it nails? Is it sports? Is it art? I have an artist. I am not artistically inclined, but I can show interest and appreciation.
Yeah. Something else that just came up for me as well, Sarah, is that I'm really focused in on caregivers and almost like behavior matching as their children shift, they also need to shift, right? And so I think about when we talk about connection, your kids aren't in elementary school anymore. They're not 5 and 6. They're 16, 15, 17. Even you might have different conversations with them, different levels of conversation with them that is needed. It lets them know that you are safe and that you see that they can handle it. Again, if they're talking about it with their friends, let me give you the information because I don't want them to give you the wrong information, right? Can you make the shift so that your kiddos now feel comfortable coming to you, right? So this is also, let's talk about it, the time where love interest, and we talked about hormones. So that also means all the other stuff. And if you're at a place where you can't have the sex conversation or the hormones and the body conversation, if you are shut off in that way, then what does that mean for them?
Right. I think it's really important, Kim, to also realize as parents, like when we're unwilling to engage in conversations about things like sex, that is a biological thing that's happening for them. Their anatomy is changing and they are changing, and it is very natural for them to shift to an interest towards romance, towards sex, towards all of these things. And I grew up in a very much purity culture. And so for me, it was a book that was put on my bed at 13. So yes, I did go to my peers to learn about all of these things because nobody would talk to me about it. And so one of my things for growth was to learn how to just talk about sex with my kids. Like, how do I do this? And I'm not weird because I can make it super weird if I'm not careful, and then they're not coming to me again. So part of my ability to connect had to be educating myself on how to talk to kids about sex in such a way that they can listen, they're not freaked out, it becomes a safe space because I'm able to handle it and all of those things. I think you make such a great point about don't avoid the sticky things because they're going to somewhere else anyway.
Yeah. And another one, and then we'll move on, but this comes up often where at this age, they're being vocal about their opinions, or we hope they are, right? We know voice
Do we?
matters.
Do
We
we?
know, I
Do
know,
we?
you're right, developmentally they should. But if they never have an opinion outside of yours,
Mm-hmm.
I'm suspect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or is it that they don't feel safe enough
Mm-hmm.
sharing their opinion outside of yours? Because we
Mm-hmm.
know that that is healthy, right?
Right.
And if that happens, now are these children disrespectful
Mm-hmm.
because they don't
Mm-hmm.
agree?
Oh dear. Yes.
Man, again, this is about caregivers needing to shift,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before you'd say, go put on your yellow pants, and they'd go put on their yellow pants. And if they didn't, maybe you're like, okay, you can wear those, but, or you're going to eat your vegetables and no, you're going to eat them. Now they're like, no, I don't want to eat vegetables.
Right.
No. And what are you going to do, right? Maybe. So we again have to shift our expectations, our view of our influence, and understand it is healthy for them to have even a different opinion. I would tell my kids, like, you can have a different, now we got to watch the way you talk about, the tone of your tone of voice and all of that stuff. Right. Do something, your tone of voice still needs to be connecting, even though it's different, right? We can have various opinions and still be connected. And so that is the idea. We have to be able to accept that from our children.
And I think if you want to give yourself a gift as a parent, teaching your kids to respectfully disagree with you, just watch how smart they are. Just watch how thoughtful they are and how curious they are. Those conversations will be some of the ones you remember forever because you've made space for them to express themselves. And you don't have to agree, but if you can step back, like I'll always think, like, let's keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is that we're going to keep moving forward in relationship. And if we need to address something with correction, fine, we should do that. We need the balance of structure and nurture. But if I like listening to how these kids now can talk and articulate their thoughts and how they're researching and they know how to access things. I mean, I was literally talking to an 11-year-old the other day, and this is earlier than the age group we're talking about, but she was drawing something, and I said, "How did you learn to do that?" And she said, "Well, I went to YouTube, and then I went to this, and then I went to," and I was like, "Whoa." Like these kids know how to access information, and allowing them to do that and formulate their own opinions is so important because otherwise they're going to take on anybody else's too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
really good point. I think felt safety we've pretty much touched on, like just being that person. We weren't a heavy rules house, but really like kind of our number one rule was that we help each other feel safe in some ways. So I didn't have a curfew for my girls, which people are kind of surprised by, but I had you don't worry your mama period of time. So we live 15 minutes away from the closest place they would be, like at a friend's house or whatever. So if they said they were going to be home at 10 and they weren't by 9:45, I had to know because 9:45 was when I started to worry, And so I think when we think about felt safety and respect and what all those things look like, I think our fear goes to rules, our calm goes to relationship.
Oh, that's good, Sarah.
Just thinking through, like, how do I create felt safety when our kids are at school and gun violence is an issue? How do I create felt safety? And just being really creative and letting our kids have a voice into that, I think is so important.
Yeah. And I think, again, if you've done your job around connecting and creating a culture of connection and structure, then felt safety is established.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about empowering and correcting. And then I have one last question for you, because we just talked about connecting within the three pillars. Empowering these babies, because, whoa, they're different now.
Whoa, yeah.
And like so much is happening in these, teen, adolescent, moving on kind of spaces.
Again, empowerment comes from, managing your surroundings and the internal to help them feel safe. And so, I think about that. I raised girls primarily. And so body image, real big during this time. Right. And so how are you showing up as caregiver to combat the pressure? And it is still just that pressure to fit in and all the things that come with that. And guys too. I think considering that. So empowerment could be just really in the culture that you create in your house, in your home. You practice receiving compliments. Believe it or not, those small things, giving and receiving compliments to help boost that internal self-esteem. So they have enough in them. So when they go out in the world or in that locker room or right in seventh grade chemistry class or the cafeteria where all the girls are talking, they've got enough in them, right, to not just succumb to that pressure.
Right.
Empowerment can be like, just the choices and getting them in the kitchen to help, cook, and so they can learn what healthy is. Getting them, I always think about more responsibilities. Why? Because they're in a different space now, right? So what I didn't do with my kids, if I had a do-over, I would have them at the grocery store with me more. Some of those small things, like I need you to learn the difference between a cabbage and a head of lettuce. those are different. Or realizing the pricing of food, right? So that you're just not scouring everything. So you realize that it's all this imbalance. I think when we think about empowering teenagers, it's also about giving them exposure to information so they can navigate their world internally, like making sure, they're going to stay up. Right. A lot of them. Their body's doing what it is. So forcing them to go to sleep and all the natural consequences, a good way to empower, right? Because it also is bringing in the choices. If you stay awake, I'm not going to be up to monitor you. Why? Because I'm going to sleep. Right. She going to sleep at 11. Now, if you stay up till 2 and miss your bus and get Saturday school or detention because you've missed your bus 3 times. Yep. Should probably work on going to sleep a little earlier.
Right. Yeah, and I think bringing all that back into them understanding their brains and their bodies, kind of through the empowering principles of your body needs sleep. So in our school district, they starting the high schoolers' day later because all the science out there says these brains and bodies aren't ready to go as early as the littles are. So, save some money on your busing, have them run twice, right? Whatever. But thinking about I remember thinking about instead of packing their lunch, right? You get this much money a week. So what does your body need? So if you go and you get the Takis and the hot Cheetos for lunch, by the time you get to your practice in the afternoon, you're not there's no way. There is no way you can sustain 2.5 hours of practice in the sun of Texas on Takis and Cheetos. And so even teaching them this is kind of the why behind our behavior all of these years was to set your body and your brain and your environment up for success. And now that we're giving this to you to do in small doses, and then you're going to come back home at the end of the day to our home that is set up to support you in that way too. But also saying when we're going to buy you clothes and we're giving you a budget, historically, you've worn compression clothes underneath your regular clothes to get some sensory needs met. Do you still need to do that? Because we need to budget that in. That's part of your needs. And so as they're getting older and scaffolding that process, because, eventually there's a chance they're going to live out on their own and be making these types of decisions when they get dysregulated because they don't have this thing that worked for their whole life. Then we can bring it back to them. Oh, so in your stocking this year, do you need some compression clothes? I don't know, maybe. So thinking about that.
Yeah.
And then I think talking about correcting really quickly, I think this is a time when we have to be so cautious in our corrections because it's really easy to push them away and it's really easy for them to go away. What you got on correcting?
Safety.
Say more.
Safety.
More
because
than that.
I agree. I'll say it again. You didn't say it again. You said say more. I think for me, this time, again, as parents making the transition, as young people are making the transition, you are not the, believe it or not, sole governing voice in their head.
Oh.
You're not. You can think you are, but you're not.
Yeah.
But if you begin to walk alongside them, still, I mean, you've got more information. You got the, purse strings and all that kind of stuff, right? All the things, right? But there's more shared power, right? We talk about that, and walk alongside them as really like advocates, mentors. And so when we talk about correcting, if it's not really about safety, and sometimes we need to let natural consequences come. That's a great way for them to learn. And then we get, again, walk alongside. How could that have been done differently? Right? What other decisions could you have made? Right? Safety, when I'm talking about, it's 3:00 in the morning and that just can't be that you're coming in the house. All of these things could happen. More structure. Okay. If moving forward next weekend, we're going to move your curfew up a little bit more. Let's see if you can honor that. Let's see if that feels safe to both me and you. And then we can, move it down again. Right. But if it's not about safety.
I remember one of mine came home with a tattoo. I don't really care about, like, you can, if you want, it's your body. If you want to put a tattoo on it, whatever. Other than I was like, that seems like that was a whimsical thought. But I just asked about it. It was reference to favorite music artist. It ended up becoming a conversation where I could learn a little bit more about what she likes and doesn't like. And I remember tucking that away in my head of like, hey, I think you actually responded to that really well. When you feel it, you're like, what I wanted to say versus what I said. And no lie, like 2 years later, she came home on a break from school and was like, I'm not getting any more tattoos until my prefrontal cortex is fully formed. It's like, because here's the thing. There's absolutely nothing that's going to happen with something like a tattoo, right? There's nothing we can do. It's done. So, I think you're right. Like this idea of like going after safety, and in that, like if there's a breach of trust in that has to be, but it has to make sense to them, right? So little makes sense to them. So if we're going to go after a correction with a heavy consequence that isn't just natural, it needs to apply to what happened. So you come home at 3, we're backing it up to 10 next week. I know that's disappointing and it's normally midnight, but we got to build some patterns up of trust.
Yeah.
Because again, like for me, it would have been like, you don't scare your mama. And I was scared. Like that was our number one rule, was like, don't let me sit in fear.
Yeah. And when I say safety, I mean not only physical safety, I think, right? Psychological safety, relational safety, all of those things are at play. A tattoo.
Yeah. Did you get it done somewhere that's clean?
And if not, we're about to learn.
Right.
We're about to learn.
She did. So we're good.
Yeah. I mean, this is the role we take, right? We begin to share more power. And if we do this well, they will be ready to launch. And when they are launched and they air, they will come back. And that is beautiful. And you can always come back to your center. You can I tell my kids this and now they keep coming back frequently. I'm like, but you can always come back to home base.
Always.
Get what you need and go back and explore the world and be great. That's exactly what we want. And we're starting that now at 15, 16, 17, 18.
And back at 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Absolutely.
Right. Kim, thanks for being here today. You're a dream.
Always fun.
The TBRI podcast is produced by the Care and Purpose Institute of Child Development at TCU. To learn more about TBRI and the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit child.tcu.edu/podcast.